What's happening, fandoms? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
we react to music videos and shows.
Today, it's the last of our series of Mandalorian breakdowns from Eric Voss and the crew at New Rockstars. We really love their content, and if you guys are not already subscribers for New Rockstars, you should go and join because they put out amazing stuff for all kinds of shows, including this one.
Oh, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and
also
like our videos.
Channel, yes.
And look, he got a haircut.
He sure did. We can't wait to hear the explanation for who the spies were and everything else that happened in this finale. And
he said that last time.
Well, let's see
I doubt
what he says this time.
I doubt it.
Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 8, Chapter 24, the season finale. I'm gonna break down all the Star Wars Easter eggs and details you missed in this finale and where everything's headed next in Ahsoka. Subscribe to my channel, The Deep Dive, where this Friday will be my analysis of Guardians of the Galaxy, and you can support this growing network by grabbing something from our merch store, nerdriot.shop, like our 89P13 Rocket Science tee. Okay, this finale episode opens on Mandalore, where Axe Woves is blasting through storm clouds into the upper atmosphere, just getting hammered with rain, which I like to think accounts for a metaphorical living waters baptism. Because boy oh boy, did Axe Woves really prove us wrong with anybody who thought he might have been another spy. No, our man is a hero. And when he was plunging that light cruiser down on Moff Gideon's base, he was totally aiming for the bushes because there goes my hero. Axe's communication with Bo-Katan cuts out a recurring issue on Mandalore this season. We thought because of storm formations, but in reality, more likely a signal emitted by Moff Gideon's base to keep his operation secret, which is why he only was able to bypass it with a call to Elia Kane last episode. Bo-Katan orders Axe to use his capital ship as a decoy, which he does, making its red mythosaur paint job a perfect target in retrospect, but really it is Axe's idea to plunge Moff Gideon's former light cruiser back into the base, making it a perfect circle to bring an end to Moff Gideon's insanity. And I like to think of this as Axe Woves' holdo maneuver, an axe, and my axe. Bo-Katan and Costin Greaves escape the Beskar commandos by detonating a charge, but Bo does a pretty cool move of thrusting forward while pivoting midair to get off a few final shots against the commandos. Cool. By the way, this white Beskar armor looks similar to the non-Beskar armor worn by the First Order stormtroopers, so maybe Brindle Hux will rip off Moff Gideon's designs, but use a cheaper material. Din Djarin breaks free from custody, and I love how they mix in Ludwig Göransson's flute every time he activates with a cool move.
Yeah.
In general, I just love the sound mixing of the scene. Every punch and block clangs with the sound of Beskar against Beskar. Din Djarin snatches a Beskar blade from the commando's boot, and knowing that it's made of Beskar, uses it to block a blaster bolt from the other one. Grogu, riding in IG-12, saves him. No. Of course, Taika Waititi's voice coming back there, and I just love that Grogu is using a free hand to smash that no button over and over to scream at the commando. Grogu uses Bacta spray, the same healing fluid that's in the Bacta tanks. This was sprayed by IG-11 on Din Djarin in the season 1 finale, that was chapter 8, and brought back again to heal Mando in chapter 5 in the Book of Boba Fett. This finale is titled The Return, and in addition to being the return for the Mandalorian people to their home planet, finally rid of the curse of Moff Gideon, and the return of life to the planet after centuries of civil war, it's also a return to form for the series as a whole, back to those pre-Darksaber days of a lone wolf and cub partaking on episodic adventures. Many of us last week definitely overthought chapter 23's episode titled The Spies to mean there might have been another traitorous Mandalorian working with Moff Gideon and Elia Kane, someone like the Armorer or Axe Woves. But no, and honestly, it's a relief to see these Mandalorians working together and not having to justify a bizarre twist that would have contradicted their actions up until now. But one interpretation that I really liked, a theme undercurrent discussed by my buddy Ryan Airy over at Screen Crush and many others online, is that the spies of the title parallel the 12 spies Moses sent out to scout the land of Canaan to find a new home for the Israelites in the Old Testament. At the start of the season, when we translated that Book of Exodus Easter egg on the tablet that was found on Mandalore, I speculated that Din Djarin, Grogu, and Bo-Katan reflect figures like Moses, who led the Israelites out of Egypt, or Joshua, Moses' successor, who led them to the Promised Land. Those 40 years wandering the desert were incredibly important because they better inform us as we suffer and stumble through our lives. And it was God's will that Moses' generation die before Joshua could enter the Promised Land so that the sins of the past generation would be fully wiped away. Moses was an important leader, of course, but he had to pay that price and allow his descendants to inherit his dreams, as all parents and elders must do. Now, one visual contrast that I love this episode is how Bo-Katan's Mandalorian scouts escape the caves by thrusting upward, followed immediately by a cut of Moff Gideon's TIE interceptors hanging like bats, dropping downward. It sets up a race to the capital ship that keeps the tension up and frames this episode around an amazing aerial battle that's just undeniably fun to watch. Moff Gideon tracks Din and Grogu through a map of his base. On the left, Orbesh translates
green
to East Wing. In the upper middle, that's serve, then room, server room, and then to the right, in smaller text, that's communication something. That's probably where he's sending out this signal jammer from. Din Djarin radios to R5 to scomp into the base, referring to the scomp linking that he does later, just like R2-D2 does on the Death Star in A New Hope. I love R5's worried sigh.
Yeah, that's what he reminds me.
And Mando responds.
Sorry, I don't speak binary.
Yes, binary is the Indian-verse term for droid speak that we hear spoken by Astromechs, but I guess Mando understands everything R5 says after this just via context. As Grogu follows Mando, notice he spins the IG-12 droid head around 360 degrees, using that IG droid capability to see behind his back and in all directions. R5 uses jet thrusters, like the ones R2-D2 first showed off in Attack of the Clones, and I like how he first wheels up to the edge as if the poor guy might want to give himself a chopper push, but it's just to nervously look over the edge because he cannot help it. From being the same red astromech with the busted motivator who led to R2-D2 going to Luke and Uncle Owen, I just love how important a path R5 has been given.
R5
smoothly
was
lands on that light cruiser and doesn't break his sprint, shouting at all the others to clear the bridge. And thank God, because when they land on those gauntlets and those gauntlets drop below the cloud layer, the camera stays on the clouds and it's literal seconds before the TIE interceptors and bombers rise up through it. Director Rick Famuyiwa and Empress Jess Seibenik and Rachel Goodlett-Katz do an amazing job intercutting rapidly throughout this episode to elevate the tension so that in moments like this, when we stay on the cloud layer for a full 17 seconds, we understand how critical all of that timing was. Axwoves rigs up the light cruiser's cannons to operate them from the captain's chair, basically doing all 6 parts of Smuggler's Run on your own. Good luck with that. But if you look closely, he shoots one TIE interceptor's wing askew, and we follow that interceptor from above as it skids along the light cruiser's hull until its wing rips off and it rolls and crashes right before the bridge. A crash shown from a mounted camera point of view of the interceptor in front of it. We're just seeing some great dogfight cinematography here. But my favorite sequence of the episode is Din Djarin working his way through that barrier shield path. These barrier shields looking like the ones that Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fought through on Naboo and Phantom Menace. But here there are 4 levels, and it's structured kind of like a video game or a literal gauntlet challenge, with each level getting increasingly difficult. Stage 1. Mando relies on surprise to steal one of their blades, and he stabs through the gaps of their armor. Then he uses the shield in the back of the first commando to block the blaster shot, and then he flings the blade into the neck. But that guy drops down into hell, so he loses the knife. Tries to grab all the commandos see Mando coming, so he's lost the element of surprise, and these next commandos have their prods ready. But as with the knife, Mando uses the weapons he steals from each stage to help him through the next one. So stage 2, Mando ping-pongs between them, but like a wrestler using elastic ropes to gain momentum, he uses that momentum to spring forward and knee the first one in the head. On to stage 3, these commandos saw how Mando stole the prod, so now they have their shields up. Mando's able to prod one of them in the foot to knock him down, and then he snatches that one's blaster. Now during all this, R5 is spotted by a mouse droid.
This
actually sounds like R5 says, "Ay, ay, ay." But in that delayed time Mando has on stage 3, the blaster fire is producing so much smoke that it creates a literal smoke screen, and when that 4th shield opens, stage 4, Mando has regained the element of surprise, and he slides past them to grab the blaster, and uses these 2 commandos shocked that one man could bring down a full hallway of them to confirm their greatest fears. So with all these stages cleared, notice how Mando has red light from above, looking just like that red light that is reflected on his chrome dome in the opening Lucasfilm fanfare of every episode this season. And then R5, now swarmed by mouse droids, jets away, knocking one of them off the ledge as he departs. So they enter this tank room that we saw last episode, and we learn that the shadowy figures that Moff Gideon passed are not Snoke Strandcasts, but rather clones of Moff Gideon himself, which is why last episode he said,
"And the most impressive improvement is that it has me in it."
This proves that all of Moff Gideon's side cloning research with Dr. Pershing, notes that he did not share with Brendel Hux with full transparency, was really Moff Gideon's attempt to subvert Hux's side of the business, Project Necromancer, which of course is to clone Palpatine, so that Moff Gideon could create these Force-sensitive clones of himself. So this may dispel the thinking that Grogu's DNA will directly lead to Snoke and the Palpatine clones of the sequel trilogy. Then again, last week Gideon told Hux that Pershing's cloning research was lost for now. So I assume that Eli Kane may now report to Hux, and that knowledge will continue to serve the first First Order, even if Grogu's DNA is no longer in the mix. But important to note, when we saw Moff Gideon in Season 1 and Season 2, he had a mustache, whereas this season he's been clean shaven along with all of his clones. So who knows? The Moff Gideon who dies this episode might not even be the original Gideon. That's the thing about clones. Somehow, they'll always return. The Mandalorian survivors, played by Charles Parnell, that's Warlock from Top Gun Maverick, and Charles Baker, that's Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad, take them to this refuge cave filled with regrown plant life.
These are the old species indigenous to Mandalore.
They are grizzled looking.
The centuries of civil war.
He's referring to the long history of Mandalorian civil wars that took place on the planet before the Clone Wars, one of the most recent ones referenced in Chapter 14 by Boba Fett.
Your father was a foundling. He even fought in the Mandalorian civil wars.
External and internal strife reduced Mandalore to the barren desert as part of the Mandalorian cataclysm, leading to their dome cities like Sundari. So this is a version of Mandalore that even Bo-Katan would be unfamiliar with. The survivor captain says,
Once the planet was abandoned, they sprouted in spots. We cultivated farms. Life persists.
So I think this is the 40 years in the desert of the Exodus parallel in episode 1. Mandalorians as a people are warriors by nature. They did this to their own planet. And so to heal it, they all have to leave this promised land and serve a generation in exile before they're allowed to return to the promised land renewed. Also, this line, life persists, seems like a Star Wars version of
life, finds a way.
The armorer leads reinforcements to rejoin Bo-Katan. The armorer's tongs are at her side, though she didn't seem to have them when she jumped out of the gauntlet, but whatever. And Bo-Katan ignites a darksaber to lead the charge. The Mandos and Commandos collide, and we stay with one Commando who looks around completely confused until the armorer slams into him with their hammer and tongs. It's so great, and it's followed by a shot of Bo-Katan and the armorer side by side, Bo-Katan slashing down with the darksaber while the armorer bats someone down with their tools. It's like we're seeing the power of the darksaber align with the tools of the Mandalorians, so that the tools of the Mandalorian are all that will matter from here forward. But either way, they're both together using the weight of Mandalore's gravity with their descent to empower these attacks. Gideon rages at Mando for smothering his clone babies that he didn't really try that hard to defend, and the two fight. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the stunt actors who together play Din Djarin, Lateef Crowder, and Brendan Wayne were the ones in the suits for these scenes because they're the same height. It'd just be perfect to end the season letting these two go at it like this. Gideon unleashes his Praetorian guards. Grogu marches in with the angriest face I've ever seen him have. Grogu has to briefly handle them by himself, but he giggles as he force leaps along the light rigging. And notice how throughout this episode, Grogu never uses the Force as a weapon. He only uses it to block, to defend, to swipe weapons away. This would be a trait taught to him by Luke Skywalker, and a trait taught to Luke Skywalker by Master Yoda, but only after the Jedi Order had fallen. Because in Revenge of the Sith, Yoda was killing plenty of clone troopers. Bo-Katan tackles Gideon to save Din Djarin and to free him up to help Grogu. Now these two face off, and as Gideon ignites his staff, Bo-Katan ignites a darksaber and angles it toward him. And I love anytime you can see the flatness and the broken nature of the blade. Reminded the darksaber is an anomaly among the other lightsabers, which are more cylindrical and pole-like. This is a flat blade, and it's a cracked aberration that is not meant to be long for this universe. As the Praetorian guards close in on Grogu, we see his little head and pointed ears in the foreground, mirroring our very first shot of the child in the pilot episode of the series when Mando first saw him in that bassinet. This is when he is at his most vulnerable, but with Din Djarin's offensive strikes and Grogu's defensive blocks, they're able to defeat these three Praetorian guards. Between this and The Last Jedi, it's clear that you really just need a powerful duo whenever you run into these guys. Meanwhile, Gideon crushes the darksaber. Similar to Rey and Kylo splitting the lightsaber in The Last Jedi, ripping it in half because they both wanted it equally, here both Gideon and Bo-Katan are squeezing that darksaber handle so hard out of a similar unyielding desire. Now it does feel a bit wrong that a supercharged grip could break an ancestral weapon, but it's also a cursed relic that has only brought pain to this world. Bo-Katan doesn't need it to lead. To me, its broken appearance has always given it some fragility, and it's always looked more like a ghastly corpse on his last leg, so I don't mind seeing it go. Axe Woves crashes into the base, an open crack, remember, formed by Moff Gideon's fusion bombs during that Night of Thousand Tears, making this, plus this being Gideon's own ship, poetic justice for how Moff Gideon dies.
I forgot it was Gideon's ship.
Also, being caught in a fiery explosion is exactly how Esposito's character gets it in Breaking Bad. Grogu saves them from the fire with a force bubble, as music plays a dramatic swell of Grogu's reunion music that we heard when he and Din Djarin reunited on Tatooine in the Book of Boba Fett.
That's right.
Actually, speaking of Exodus earlier, this melody sounds very similar to Stephen Schwartz's Power of God music in The Prince of Egypt. Our
Yes, it
little
does.
Moses here, instead of parting the Red Sea, is miraculously manipulating nature in a similar way with fire, saving them in a similar move to Cain and Jairus' sacrifice save in Rebels. So we circle back to the opening scene of the season, the Mandalorian baptism ritual for Ragnar Vizsla. It was interrupted before, now completed in the living waters. Thank God the ferocious beast at the bottom of these waters didn't come up to interrupt it here.
Yeah.
All the Mandalorian
I was
houses are
gonna say
represented by
the
their
same.
banners. On the far left, the branch with the red plumage of House Vizsla, and on the far right, the animal face in white on a red banner of House Eldar. There's also a ring-shaped sigil on a yellow banner towards the left side that kind of looks like the Crusader sigil. Whereas before, this chamber was shrouded in darkness that no one could see on Disney Plus, now it's lit with lanterns, gone from ruins to a proper temple. Despite customarily
it
going
looked
helmets off
nice.
everywhere, Bo-Katan and the Night Owls watch his ceremony respectfully with their helmets on. Ragnar completes the baptism and Din Djarin presents Grogu to be added to the song, but since Grogu cannot speak, Din Djarin adopts Grogu as his son so that he can be his Mandalorian apprentice named Din Grogu. Grogu looks down into the water,
Din
whereas before it was
Grogu.
dark and murky. Now it is illuminated and clear, as the clouds have lifted over Mandalore and its depths are no longer threatening, but a source of inspiration. Grogu connects with the Mythosaur, setting up a possible
I think
future
so.
where these two can meet. The smallest Mandalorian and the biggest one. Bo-Katan
Right.
reignites the Great Forge using a torch handed to her by the armorer, a torch that, it might just be me, but it looks like it might have been made from the handle of the broken Darksaber, which would be perfect, because formerly a weapon brandished to declare rule over Mandalorians, now a beacon of light to spark their eternal
Maybe.
flame of a new generation. And overall,
Not
this
sure I buy
forge
that.
looks like it has 4 big columns, cylindrical, almost like giant lightsabers with kyber crystals burning from the middle, but here an instrument of growth instead of an instrument of division and death. Din Djarin and Grogu return to the New Republic pilot bar, where once again it's filled with Easter eggs. That billiards type game that was in the Tashi station in the A New Hope deleted scene, the same location as the Book of Boba Fett. There's various trophies of helmets of stormtroopers, scout troopers,
Yeah.
Imperial pilots, RA-7 protocol droid heads, a head of an Imperial probe droid, and now in the far corner, an IG assassin droid head. Misty Roses plays the bartender. She played Kuiil in season 1, and Dave Filoni himself with his
Yes,
hat returns
yeah.
as the X-Wing
It's
pilot Trapper Wolf. And I'm pretty sure Dave is
funny.
saying random Star Wars stuff in the background that they kept in, because as Grogu sits on the stool, you can definitely hear him say Plo Koon. Jedi Master Plo Koon is obviously super important to Filoni. He's the one who trained Ahsoka Tano at a young age. He was a great pilot. Plo Koon was a cover story for Luke Skywalker's cameo in the season 2 finale, and a Plo Koon mask showed up as an Easter egg in Andor. Mando tells Carson Teva that he's up to work contract gigs to help him patrol the Outer Rim, setting up the episodic adventures that they'll go on in season 4, and he asks as payment the IG droid head, because since they stopped manufacturing this would be one source of the chip that they need to repair IG-11, which is what Mando does when he returns to Navarro, gets some help from those Anzellans, and resurrects IG-11 as Marshal of Navarro. That was a job Greef Karga asked Mando to do at the start of the season, and IG-11 has red plating matching Greef's robes and the plating of Axwo's redesign of the ship.
And
the
now
episode
he's
ends
the
on Din Djarin's
Marshal.
new homestead, a tree and a pond in the front yard, as Grogu levitates a frog, as he did with Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 6. He
Oh.
does not eat the frog though, he just plays with it. Our final shot is a Lucasfilmy Iris out edit, framing this father and son together in a little bubble. If the Mandalorian wants to move on from these characters as the focal ones and instead bring them in every once in a while, this would be a fitting final shot for them. But I think it's important that we see a tree here, because trees are super important not just to the Jedi religion, but to all religions. When I say Jedi, I'm not talking about the way their creed got bastardized and politicized over the years, but the more natural approach that ultimately has more in common really with the Mandalorian creed. There's a force tree that was in the Jedi temple on Coruscant. We should
yeah.
also recognize that there was a sacred Gaffi tree to the religion of the Tuskens in the Book of Boba Fett. All these religions, I think, are different interpretations of the same thing. And just as Mandalore has been restored with miraculous plant life, life, interestingly, has also found a way on these lava flats.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us this season of The Mandalorian. You can subscribe to Deep Dive NR for deeper analyses of the titles you love. You can support our growing network by grabbing something from our merch store, nerdriot.shop. Subscribe to New Rockstars on YouTube and on all social platforms. Follow me at EA Voss. Thanks for watching. Bye.
They need to update their little tag there. They're pretty much at 4 million now, not 3 million. They are an amazing group. We love the deep dives, especially the Arabesh and Mandalore script translations. I love the analysis of the religious aspects, like
That I never thought of.
right, yeah.
That we
I mean,
never thought of.
it's hard. It's hard to do those things on the fly, but when you're really spending the time and analyzing it like they do, they come up with all these connections and they make sense.
Do you think they timed it during the Easter month? Seems like
I
it.
don't think that they timed this to coincide with Easter at all. I mean,
It was just
there's
coincident, though.
religious ties and and
Yeah, but it was coincidence.
influences all throughout all of Star Wars.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just coincidence,
yeah.
though, that they were on, April.
Yeah, just a coincidence, I think, because they would have timed the release based on
March,
production
April.
finishing up and stuff, not really to coincide with an Earth holiday.
Who knows?
But it's interesting to see that I guess there is a season 4 of Mandalorian. I didn't know for sure that was true. But also we've been sort of hinted at that there will be a movie tie-in for all of these Mandalorian, Ahsoka, like all of these different properties that are kind of coming together. Boba Fett, they're all in the same time frame and they're all in the same universe and they're kind of all converging to one
Connected together.
big, maybe Avengers like team up,
We'll
something
see.
big. So we'll probably we'll wait until Ahsoka to see Thrawn. We didn't see him in
No.
Mandalorian, so maybe they will all converge to fight Thrawn. That would be kind of cool.
You never know.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there. We really appreciate Eric for all the work he does and helping us understand what we watched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for tuning into our channel. Don't forget to give your support to
New Rockstars.
the new Rockstars.
That's right.
And then our link will be, their link will be in the description below. Thank you again for your love and support to our channel. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for loving our channel and liking our videos. And thank you for your love and support by subscribing to our Small and Mighty channel to help us grow. Thank you again and see you in the next video.